Few people know the story. On May 28, 1918, as the First World War was nearing its climactic end and the Bolshevik October Revolution would plant the seeds of dramatic global political and social change, the Azerbaijan Democratic Republic established itself as one of the first secular democratic republics in the Muslim world. According to its original national charter, this new republic pledged to establish friendly relations with all, while guaranteeing to all its citizens within its borders full civil and political rights, regardless of ethnic origin, religion, class, profession, or sex. From the beginning of the republic, women had the right to vote. In the United States of America, one of the world's models of a democratic republic, was looked upon as this new nation's natural ally. On May 28, 1919, 1 year to the day after the founding of the Azerbaijan Democratic Republic, a delegation of Azerbaijani officials met with President Woodrow Wilson at the Paris Peace Conference. This delegation was led by Alamuddin Bey Topshubashov. Topshubashov was one of the founders of the Union of Muslims, which once petitioned the Tsar to grant equal rights to Muslim minorities living within the Russian Empire. As the leader of this delegation, Topshubashov was the new Azerbaijan Minister of Foreign Affairs. The delegation appealed to President Wilson for formal recognition of the new Azerbaijan Democratic Republic by the United States of America. Historians note that, as part of this inaugural event in Azerbaijan-US relations, the Azerbaijan delegation presented President Wilson with a memo detailing the atrocities endured by the Azerbaijani people in their struggle for independence from Tsarist Russia and the failed Transcaucasian Democratic Federative Republic. According to some accounts, President Wilson is said to have noted about this meeting, "I met with a very dignified and interesting group of gentlemen from Azerbaijan, men who spoke the same language I did, about ideas and concepts of liberty, rights, and justice." Unfortunately, as is so often the case, the realization of our noblest political ideals usually involves a long and costly struggle, a struggle which outlives those, like Alamuddin Bey Topshubashov, who courageously first envisioned these ideals for their societies. In 1920, after only 23 short months of Azerbaijani independence, Vladimir Lenin authorized the invasion of Azerbaijan by the 11th Soviet Red Army. He was determined to claim the oil resources of Baku for his new Soviet Union. Thus, in the name of Bolshevism, Lenin perpetuated the tradition of Russian imperialism in the region, establishing the Azerbaijan SSR on April 28, 1920. It took another 70 years before the people of Azerbaijan were able to regain their freedom and independence, but not without great additional sacrifice. In the Black January massacre of 1990, Soviet troops invaded the city of Baku with the aim of crushing the Azerbaijani independence movement that grew in intensity as the Soviet Union grew closer to its eventual disintegration. According to a respected Human Rights Watch report, the violence used by the Soviet army on the night of January 19th in the city of Baku was so out of proportion to the resistance offered by Azerbaijanis as to constitute an exercise in collective punishment. As tragic as Black January was, few Azerbaijanis would disagree that the darkest moment of their struggle for independence came on the 25th and 26th of February 1992. In these days of horror, hundreds of ethnic Azerbaijani civilians of the town of Khojaly were killed by predominantly Armenian troops of the 6-year Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. After the United States recognized the independence of the new Republic of Azerbaijan on December 25, 1991, diplomatic relations between the two countries were formally established on February 28, 1992, shortly after the Khojaly massacre. By March of 1992, the United States opened its first embassy to the Republic of Azerbaijan. 8 months later, in November of 1992, the first embassy of Azerbaijan was opened in Washington, D.C. Ever since the restoration of Azerbaijani independence in 1991 and the establishment of full diplomatic relations with the U.S. 1 year later, this is why independent Azerbaijan almost immediately opened the region of the Caspian Sea under its jurisdiction to investments from the United States and Europe. On September 20th, 1994, President Heydar Aliyev met in Baku with the U.S. Deputy Energy Secretary Bill White and a group of other national and energy industry leaders to sign an oil contract between the State Oil Company of the Republic of Azerbaijan and the Western Oil Consortium, which, in light of its potential economic benefit to both Azerbaijan and the West, was later dubbed the Contract of the Century. In the same year, Azerbaijan President Heydar Aliyev managed to prevent a civil war, which many believe to have been instigated by foreign powers in order to destabilize the oil and gas contracts Azerbaijan had forged with U.S. and European companies. Aliyev achieved stability by signing a ceasefire agreement with Armenia and by undermining two related coups d'etats, one in 1994 and one in 1995, each organized to prevent delivering key Caspian oil and gas reserves to U.S. and European markets. On September 27, 1994, during his visit to New York to participate in the 49th session of the UN General Assembly, President Aliyev met with President Bill Clinton, who congratulated President Aliyev for signing the contract of the century. The two presidents took this opportunity to discuss the future potential of this contract, as well as other elements of economic cooperation between their two countries. Since 1994, Azerbaijan-US cooperation has grown into most of the fundamental areas of international relations. Among these, the two nations have cooperated closely in the arena of global security by developing strategic partnerships against international terrorism and aimed at the protection of national borders through mutual support of anti-missile protection systems. The two nations have also continued to strengthen their strategic partnerships in economic and energy development, including the construction and utilization of new pipelines. These new pipelines are envisioned as part of the complex of highway, rail construction, and other infrastructure projects designed to create an east-west energy corridor, sometimes referred to as the modern Silk Road, because of its potential to enhance trade between Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey, and the West. In November of 1999, in Istanbul, President Aliyev, President Clinton, President Süleyman Demirel of Turkey, and President Nursultan Nazarbayev of Pakistan signed an agreement which helped implement the contract of the century. It provided for the construction of the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, nicknamed the Legend of the Three Seas, because of the pipeline's planned monumental spanning of the Caspian, the Black, and the Mediterranean Seas. Through its strong support of these vital projects as a source of mutual interest, the U.S. continued to prove itself to be Azerbaijan's most significant ally in the latter's aspirations to remain an independent republic dedicated to building democratic institutions in a region of the world where democracy and human rights are still under threat. With the support of the United States, Azerbaijan continues to make progress in securing its borders and in strengthening its democratic and civic institutions. From July 28 through August 1, 1997, Azerbaijani President Heydar Aliyev paid his first visit to the U.S., where he met with Secretary of Defense William Cohen and President Clinton. There, President Aliyev and Clinton succeeded in signing agreements on military cooperation between their two countries. After two subsequent visits to Washington in 1999 and 2000, President Heydar Aliyev met with President George W. Bush during Aliyev's last visit to the States on April 1, 2001. As a result of these visits, on January 25, 2002, President Bush signed the decree to suspend the effects of the 907th Amendment to the Freedom Support Act, an amendment which banned U.S. aid to Azerbaijan pending its cessation of its blockade of Armenia over the disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh. In 2003, President Heydar Aliyev was succeeded by his son, Ilham Aliyev, who made his first official visit to the U.S. in 2004. During this visit, Presidents Ilham Aliyev and George W. Bush exchanged their views on directions for the ongoing Azerbaijan-U.S. strategic partnership, as well as their respective views on the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. In April of 2006, 8 months after U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld's visit to Baku to discuss security cooperation, President Ilham Aliyev paid a second official visit to the U.S. During this visit, President Aliyev met with and discussed a wide range of issues with President Bush and senior members of the Bush administration, including Vice President Dick Cheney, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, Commerce Secretary Carlos Gutierrez, Energy Secretary Samuel Bodman, Director of National Intelligence John Negroponte, and a number of other key officials. In September of 2008, Vice President Dick Cheney made an official visit to Baku, and 2 years later, on July 4, 2010, Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton was received by President Ilham Aliyev at the presidential residence in Baku. President Aliyev's first meeting with President Barack Obama took place in September of 2010, where President Obama emphasized the importance of U.S.-Azerbaijan relations and the success of the Republic of Azerbaijan since its founding in 1991. Over the past 20 years, the Republic of Azerbaijan has achieved rapid socio-economic development. Now, Azerbaijan produces 50 million tons of oil and 27 billion cubic meters of gas each year. These hydrocarbon reserves, estimated at 3 trillion cubic meters of natural gas alone, play an essential role in the energy security of Europe. In the 3 consecutive years of 2006, 2007, and 2008, Azerbaijan held the record as the world's fastest-growing economy, a growth rate that maintained its stability even during the years of the global economic crisis of 2008. The Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railroad construction is in full swing and laying the foundation for an east-west transport corridor connecting Europe with China. Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, has undergone significant change during the last 5 years. For example, the cityscape has been enriched with modern architecture, while at the same time preserving the distinctness of its rich and culturally specific architectural heritage. And change has come not only to Baku, but also to the outlying provinces of Azerbaijan, which are undergoing their own process of rapid economic development and improvement today. Azerbaijan is becoming recognized for its aspirations to be a truly multicultural and multi-religious nation where the civil rights of all are respected. The visit of His Holiness Pope John Paul II to Azerbaijan in May of 2002 is just one sign of the Republic's commitment to religious freedom as one piece of its overall commitment to the protection of human rights. Today, the vision of the Azerbaijan delegation to President Wilson at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919 is finally beginning to be realized. Azerbaijan, the first Muslim-majority country to grant women the right to vote nearly a full century ago, is now a society where Muslims, Catholics, Orthodox Christians, and Jews live together in a spirit of convivencia, supported by economic development and a dedication to freedom which has distinguished it as a bridge between Europe and the Middle East, as well as Central and East Asia. As it seeks to realize the dream of those who have struggled long and hard for its independence, the Republic of Azerbaijan remains a reliable energy partner, as well as a strong cultural and political ally of the United States.